The air was thick with smoke. Neon lights flickered above rusted metal doors and voices shouted in a dozen alien languages. This was Sector 9, the place where hope came to die. In the middle of that noise walked, or rather dragged, a girl, with no name. Her long coat was torn, stained with dust, her feet bare, and her left leg was nothing but a useless chunk of flesh. She limped, dragging that leg behind her, each step echoing against cold steel streets. She had no family, no planet, no real memories left, only pain, hunger, and one wish to walk again. For days she had sat outside the city clinic, watching rich aliens walk in and out with gleaming cybernetic limbs, new arms, new eyes, new legs. The sign above the door mocked her. Advanced biotech, we build better bodies. But smaller text said the truth. Credit required, no free, upgrades. She had no credit, not even a name to give. The system didn't care about the poor, especially not orphan aliens like her. So today, she stood in the middle of the trade square, her voice shaking as she whispered the words. I offer myself to anyone who will fix my leg. At first, no one heard her. The crowd was too busy haggling over weapons, stolen tech, and illegal pets. But soon someone laughed. Then another. Then a whole group turned to look at her. A skinny, broken girl with one dead leg begging to be bought like a piece of trash. An old alien merchant came close, his skin pale and slimy, his many eyes blinking slowly. "How much are you worth, girl?" he sneered. I don't know, she said. Just enough to walk, he chuckled. "You think a new leg costs cheap? You'd be lucky if someone paid to recycle you." She lowered her eyes, heart pounding. But then, from behind the crowd, a new voice echoed. Calm, deep, powerful. "I'll take her." Everyone turned. Silence fell. A tall alien noble walked into the square, his robe glowing with energy threads. His face was hidden behind a mask made of shining black glass. Even the merchant stepped back. This was someone powerful, someone dangerous. "I'll pay for her surgery," he said. "But she belongs to me now." The girl's heart jumped, not with joy but fear. Still, she nodded, because what else could she do? This was the price of walking again. She was taken to the clinic immediately. Machines scanned her. Doctors asked no questions. Credits were transferred with a single blink from the noble. Her leg was removed under cold lights, and a new one installed, silver, sleek, powerful. She could feel again, every toe, every movement. Tears ran down her cheeks when she stood on both legs for the first time in years. But no one celebrated with her. The noble stood in the corner, watching, silent, cold. Once the operation was done, he snapped his fingers. "Let's go." She followed him like a shadow, through metal corridors into a waiting shuttle. The seat was soft. The air inside smelled like flowers. But she didn't relax. Her contract was loaded onto a hologram in front of her. It glowed in red text. Ownership confirmed. She had signed her life away, just to take one step without pain. The shuttle landed at a massive estate, floating in the clouds above the trade moon. It was beautiful. Gold towers, glowing pools, servants in lines, but beauty can hide cages. A female servant guided her to her new room, bare, cold, with one small bed and no windows. "Dinner is in 2 hours," the servant said without looking at her. "Don't be late, or he gets angry." The girl nodded, then sat on the bed and looked at her new leg. It gleamed like silver glass, lights softly blinking. She moved it, flexed it, even stood up again. It worked perfectly, but her chest felt heavy. Her breath shallow. She had what she wanted. She could walk again, but now she was a thing, not a person. No name, no freedom, no voice, just someone's property. As the lights dimmed around her, she whispered to herself, "Maybe one day someone will care." She didn't know that someone had already seen her. Someone who wasn't rich, wasn't powerful, but had something no one else did. A heart that still noticed the invisible, and that someone was human. The estate floated above the clouds like a dream. White towers glowed under artificial suns, and flying birds made of light circled the spires. To outsiders, it was paradise. But for her, it was a beautiful prison. She stepped inside, with silent feet, her new cybernetic leg clicking softly against the marble floor. Her master, still faceless behind his black glass mask, walked ahead without a word. Servants bowed to him, guards stood tall as statues, but none looked at her. To them, she was nothing more than a tool their master had purchased. The servant, from earlier, guided her through long halls with shining glass windows and silver vines creeping across the walls. They passed statues of warriors and beasts, fountains that sang strange songs. But her room, when they reached it, was nothing. Like the outside, no windows, no soft colors, no art, just a metal bed, a sink, and one blinking red camera in the corner. "You will wake at sunrise," the servant said without emotion. "You will clean his chambers, serve meals, polish the floors." The girl nodded. "Yes," she whispered, unsure if she should use his name. She didn't even know it. The servant looked at her with sharp eyes. "Don't try to run, the leg has a tracker." Then she left and locked the door behind her. That night, the girl lay awake, staring at the blinking red dot in the ceiling. The leg under her blanket was warm, powerful, a gift she had dreamed of. But it came with chains. She had sold herself for the chance to stand, but standing meant nothing if you had nowhere to go. The next morning came like a knife. A loud alarm buzzed in her room, making her sit up quickly. She dressed in gray servant clothes, plain and rough. The cybernetic leg worked perfectly. No pain, no delay, just movement like water. But she didn't smile, not even once. For days, the routine was the same. Wake up, clean his chambers, sweep the marble halls, polish the mirrors that reflected a girl she didn't recognize anymore. She never spoke to him, and he never spoke. To her, not unless he needed something. When guests came to the estate, he would make her stand beside him like a trophy. He'd say, "Yes, that's the one I fixed, cost me a fortune." And the guests would laugh or clap as if she were an exhibit in a museum. At night, she cleaned the dining hall, alone. The other servants didn't talk to her. They were either afraid of her master or jealous she had been given a gift. They didn't understand. The leg was not freedom. It was a leash. One evening, as she wiped the marble floor near the central fountain, her leg made a soft hiss. Something sparked, and her balance shifted. She fell hard onto the cold stone, her hands scraping against sharp corners. Pain pulsed through her wrist, and the leg made a clicking noise, stuck. She bit her lip, trying not to cry. She pushed herself up, trying to fix it, but the panel on the side wouldn't open. The joint at her knee had locked. She was stuck. Again, helpless like before. Suddenly, a voice behind her broke the silence. "Need a hand?" She turned quickly, fear rising, thinking it was her master, but it wasn't. It was a human, a janitor, dressed in worn gray overalls, holding a cleaning cart. His face was tired, rough, but kind. She looked at him in confusion. "You work here?" He nodded, kneeling beside her without hesitation. "Name's Eric," he said, opening a toolkit from his belt. "Let me guess. Janatech model, internal actuator misaligned?" She blinked, shocked. "Yes," he smiled. "I used to repair. These for veterans, now I mop floors." Carefully, he opened the panel, adjusted something with a soft click, and reset the leg's calibration. Within seconds, she could move again. She stood slowly, testing the motion, amazed. "Thank you," she whispered, almost afraid to say it. He looked up at her, wiping his hands on a cloth. "You shouldn't be crawling around like this." She shrugged. "I belong to him, I don't get to complain." Eric frowned, his eyes full of something she hadn't seen in a long time. "Pity. Belong?" he asked, standing up. "You're not a thing. You're a person." She wanted to believe that, but the camera above blinked red again, and the hallway felt colder than before. Eric gave her one last look before rolling his cart away. "Next time your leg sparks, come find me," he said softly. "Or even if it doesn't." She stood in the quiet hallway for a long time. For the first time since her contract, she didn't feel completely invisible. Someone had noticed her, not as property, not as a broken machine, but as a girl with a name no one had asked for. She touched her leg, then looked down the hallway where Eric had gone, and a strange thought came to her. Maybe not everyone in this house was heartless. Every night the mansion fell silent after the last guest left. The music stopped, the lights dimmed, and the servants vanished into shadowed corridors. But one sound always remained. The soft hum of machines being cleaned. That was when he appeared again. The human janitor with the old cart and the quiet smile, Eric. The girl didn't know why he came back. He wasn't ordered to. He didn't owe her anything. But every night after that first one, he came to the same hallway where she worked. Sometimes he brought tools, sometimes extra cloths, sometimes just his voice. To her, that was the rarest gift of all. Someone willing to speak, not shout. "What's your name?" he asked one evening as he fixed a sensor wire in her leg. She looked down, shy. "He never gave me one." Eric frowned, tightening a bolt. "Then choose one yourself." She hesitated. "Can I do that?" "Why not?" he said. "You walk now, don't you? Might as well walk with a name." She smiled for the first time in weeks. "Myra," she whispered. "Call me Myra." From that day, she had a name again, and Eric used it every time they met. "Myra, you missed a spot." "Myra, your leg's humming too loud again." "Myra, did you eat today?" He never asked for anything in return, not even thanks. He just stayed. And that was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Presence without price. One night, Myra found him sitting by a service panel, legs crossed, staring at the stars. Through a narrow window, she sat beside him, letting the silence breathe. "I thought humans didn't stay long on alien worlds," she said. Eric chuckled. "Usually we don't." "So why are you still here?" He shrugged. "Because people like you are still here." That answer didn't make sense to her. Not yet. But it made her chest feel warm, like something soft had been placed inside. Myra started looking forward to the nights. She learned Eric was once a combat engineer in the human fleet. He had seen war, lost friends, and left the battlefield to fix things instead of destroy them. Now he worked as a janitor because he didn't believe in stepping over people to climb higher. He told stories of Earth, oceans, rain, music that made your bones shake. To her, it all sounded like magic, but not everyone was blind. The estate's cameras never blinked. Servants started whispering. And one night, her master's assistant came to her room unannounced. "You are being watched," the woman said sharply. "The master does not like pets forming attachments." Myra stayed quiet, nodding. But when the assistant left, her hands trembled. Eric could be in danger. Because of her, she didn't sleep. That night, the next day, she tried to avoid him. She took new routes, finished her work early, but by the third night, Eric found her again. This time behind the gardens, hiding beside a maintenance vent. "You avoiding me, Myra?" he asked gently. She nodded. "They're watching us." "I know," he said, sitting beside her. "I don't care." Tears burned her eyes. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you keep helping me?" He looked at her, his face tired but kind. "Because I've seen too many people get broken and thrown away." "You're not trash, Myra," he said. "You're someone who matters, even if no one else sees it." That night, she cried. Quietly, hidden in the shadows. But it was the first time those tears didn't come from fear. They came from something else. From healing. But peace doesn't last in places built on control. One evening, while walking through the lower halls, Eric handed her a folded cloth. Inside was a small repair chip for her cybernetic leg, better than anything she'd been given before. "This'll keep it running cleaner," he said with a wink. She smiled. "Thank you." Then, crack, a loud voice echoed, down the hallway. "You!" A guard, tall and armored, pointed a stun rod at Eric. "Myra, step back." The guard barked. "This human is under investigation for inappropriate conduct with property." Myra froze. Property. That word hit harder than anything else. Eric didn't resist. He raised his hands slowly, looking at her. "It's okay," he said calmly. "Don't say anything." But Myra stepped forward, her voice shaking. "He helped me. He never—" "Silence," the guard snapped, shocking her leg with a remote pulse. She dropped to the floor, the metal knee locking painfully. Eric shouted, trying to reach her, but they dragged him away before he could touch her again. She watched, helpless, as the only person who cared was taken away into the dark. No one else said a word. No one stopped it. And as her leg sparked again, Myra sat on the floor and whispered one word to herself over and over. "Please." Myra sat on the cold floor long after they dragged Eric away. Her fingers trembled as she touched her leg, sparks still flickering from the knee. The joint refused to bend properly now. It shook every time she tried to stand. But worse than the broken limb was the hollow in her chest. Eric was gone and no one cared. The next day everything changed. Her orders were doubled. No one spoke to her. Her food was half the usual, her sleep broken by loud alarms. It was clear. She was being punished for the kindness shown to her, and yet she never cried in front of them. She limped through her duties, keeping her face calm, her hands steady. But each step with the damaged leg burned. Not from pain, but from the memory of how Eric had fixed it with care. One night, after scrubbing the upper balconies, she returned to her room. The light was off, the door didn't lock properly anymore. She sat on the edge of her bed, shoulders hunched, breathing slow. Her fingers traced the edge of her metal knee. The screws were loose and the inner wire had torn slightly. She didn't have the tools to fix it. Not anymore. Eric had always carried them, always knew how to make it work again. Her room was silent, but inside, her thoughts were loud. Why? Did he help me? Why didn't he just walk away like everyone else? Suddenly a strange thought entered her mind. What if he hadn't been caught by accident? What if someone set him up? After all, she had seen the way the assistant watched them from the shadows, and her master. He had never liked when others looked at his property with anything other than silence. She stood slowly, wincing as her leg twitched again. Then she moved to the corner of the room, where the cleaning panel was hidden behind a false wall. She pressed it open, revealing pipes, wires, and a narrow maintenance tunnel. She didn't know what she was looking for, maybe a clue, maybe nothing, but what she found made her breath catch. Carved into the inner metal of the tunnel just behind a loose grate were small words scratched into the surface. "Don't give up, E." Her heart jumped. He had been here. He had left her something, a message meant only for her. She touched the letters gently, her fingers trembling. Eric hadn't vanished. He had planned, just in case Myra stayed there for hours, staring at the message, repeating it like a chant. She wasn't alone. Even if he was gone, his words stayed with her. He believed in her, even. Now, with slow, careful movements, she returned to her room, grabbed the small chip he had given her before his arrest, and opened the leg panel. Her hands were clumsy, shaking, but she remembered what he'd taught her. Breathe, be gentle. Machines listen better when you treat them with care. Screw by screw, she fixed what she could. Wire by wire, she connected the chip. And when she stood again, the leg moved, like it used to, smooth, strong, steady. A quiet laugh escaped her lips, not because everything was okay, but because she had done it. He had believed in her, and now she believed in herself, just a little. The next morning, she entered the dining hall with her head slightly higher, her steps lighter, her grip stronger. The guests didn't notice, of course. To them, she was still property. But she noticed, and that was enough. As she passed by her master's table, she glanced at him. He sipped his glowing drink, eyes hidden behind his glass mask. She wondered, does he know I'm not broken anymore? Would he care if he did? That night, she returned to the same tunnel and carved her own words beneath Eric's. "I won't stop, M." It wasn't just a message, it was a promise. She began paying attention to details she had ignored before: guard patrols, door schedules, code panels on servant exits. She asked quiet questions to the low-ranking workers, the ones who looked tired and forgotten. Some gave her nothing, but one, a dishwasher with rusted arms, whispered, "Your human friend is still alive, but not for long." Her blood froze. "Where?" she asked. But the worker only shook his head. They moved him. Deep sector. Maybe punishment core. Punishment core. A place no one returned from. A place for rebels, failed servants, and broken machines. But Eric wasn't broken, and she wouldn't let him be thrown away like trash. That night, Myra stood at the edge of her narrow window, the stars far beyond reach. She clenched her hand into a fist. Her leg was whole again, but that wasn't enough. She didn't want to just walk, she wanted to run, she wanted to fight. For Eric, for herself, and for every invisible soul no one had ever cared about. She didn't know how, but she would find him. She had to. The sky above the floating estate darkened as storm clouds swirled outside the dome's energy shield. Inside, the halls glowed soft and silent. But Myra felt the pressure building. Something was coming, and she could feel it in her bones. The Mayo. Whispers had stopped. The servants who once looked through her now avoided her eyes. Even the assistant, who always spoke with poison in her voice, didn't say a word anymore. That silence was louder than any threat. Then it happened. Just after sunset, Myra was summoned to the grand hall. The room was full. Guards lined the walls. Guests in elegant robes sat on golden benches, and at the center stood her master, tall and unmoving beneath his dark mask. He raised one hand and the room fell completely silent. "My property," he said coldly, pointing at her, "has forgotten her place." Myra stood frozen in the center of the glowing floor. Her leg twitched slightly. Was it fear? Or was it the wires trembling again? "You were seen speaking to a prisoner," he continued. "A human thief who disrespected this estate." She opened her mouth, but a guard shoved her forward, forcing her to kneel. She gasped but did not cry. She would not give them that, or her. Master walked in slow circles around her, voice steady and cruel. "Do you know what happens to disobedient tools?" The room waited in silence. Then he lifted a small remote and pressed a glowing red button. Pain shot through her leg. Her scream echoed off the marble walls. The cybernetic knee bent backward with a violent snap. Locking her down, sparks flew, and she collapsed, her forehead hitting the floor. He pressed it again, this time her entire left side locked. Her fingers clenched, her vision blurred, but her mind stayed sharp, her heart filled with fire. This was not punishment. This was control. This was a message to everyone else. Don't care, don't help, or you'll be next. She thought kindness was a gift. The master sneered. But in this house, mercy is weakness. He turned to the audience. Let this be a lesson. They clapped. Some laughed. Not one reached out to help her. Her name, Myra, felt like it was breaking into pieces inside her chest. But then she remembered Eric, his smile, his hands gently fixing her leg, his voice saying, "You're not a thing. You're someone." She was dragged back to her room, her body trembling, her breath shallow. The door slammed shut. Darkness surrounded her except for the blinking red camera in the ceiling. For hours she lay there, too weak to move. Then she reached under the bed and pulled out a small pouch she had hidden. Inside, tools Eric had left behind, and the tiny message chip she had carved with his name. She opened her leg panel through gritted teeth, ignoring the sparks and blood on her hands. The system had been damaged by the remote pulses, but not beyond repair. She worked slowly, whispering to herself to stay awake. Fix the joint, stabilize the core, reset the limiter, over and over, like a prayer. And finally, click. The joint released, she gasped and fell back, tears rolling down her cheeks, not from pain but from victory. She could move again. That night her door opened quietly. It wasn't the assistant or a guard. It was the dishwasher, the same rusted alien who'd whispered about Eric. He stepped in and tossed a small piece of paper on her bed. "Don't speak," he said softly. "Just read." Then he vanished like a shadow. Myra unfolded the paper, hands shaking. It was a floor map of the estate's underground levels. A red mark circled one section. Core C7, sub-level prison. Her breath caught. Eric was still here. Beneath the palace, beneath the laughter, the wealth, and the gold. They had hidden him under their feet like trash. She looked at the map again, studying the access routes. Most doors were locked by security codes, but one, marked Old Shaft, had no lock label. It might be her only way in. She stood slowly, testing her leg. It was rough, imperfect, but it worked, just like her heart. Damaged, but still beating. The courier camera still blinked above. She stared at it, then whispered to herself, "They want me to stay down. But he wouldn't leave me behind. So I won't leave him." She wasn't just going to escape. She was going to bring Eric out, and if anyone stood in her way, they'd learn what a girl with a broken body and a burning soul could really do. The night was darker than usual. Clouds smothered the artificial moons above the estate. The glowing vines on the tower walls dimmed for maintenance. It was the perfect time. Or maybe the only chance she'd ever get. Myra stood at the far edge of the servant quarters, hidden behind a cleaning unit. Her heart thumped hard, like it was trying to escape before she did. The map burned in her mind. Every corridor, every camera angle, every blind spot. She had memorized it all. Her leg twitched, the metal joint stiff but working. She had rewired it carefully. She couldn't afford a single misstep tonight, not if she wanted to reach Eric. She moved, fast but quiet, sliding past sensor gates, using a stolen cleaner's badge. The guards weren't expecting a servant to be smart enough to plan escape, and they definitely didn't expect her to try anything. To them, she was just a girl with a price tag. She passed through the lower kitchens, then the boiler chambers. Each step brought her closer to the forbidden area, sub-level C, a place where failed servants and broken machines were taken and erased forever. The air grew hotter as she descended. Pipes hissed, and warning signs blinked red. Toxic fumes, unstable generators, deactivated bots dumped in corners. This place was built to be forgotten. She reached the old shaft entrance. Just like on the map, it had no code lock, only a rusted handle and faded writing. Danger, structural risk. She pulled it open and stepped inside. Darkness swallowed her, but she didn't hesitate. She couldn't. Not now. She crawled through the shaft, the metal walls scraping her shoulders. The heat made it hard to breathe, but in her mind she saw Eric's face, the smile, the kindness, the warmth. That image pulled her forward. Suddenly, she heard voices echoing through the pipes, guards below her. The humans still breathing? Yeah, but barely. Master said to finish him tomorrow. Should have done it days ago. Laughter followed. Then footsteps faded, her stomach twisted. They were going to kill him. She had no more time. She slid down the last section of the shaft and dropped into a pile of broken droid parts. The sound echoed and a spotlight flashed across the room. She rolled to cover, heart racing. A guard bot floated by, scanning slowly. She held her breath, praying it wouldn't sense her heat. It passed without alarm. She exhaled and moved again. She reached the locked door of cell block C7. Her hand trembled as she pulled out the bypass chip, the one she had kept hidden since the punishment. It sparked when it touched the panel. A quiet click. The door slid open. Inside, metal cages lined the walls. Most were empty, some filled with broken furniture or destroyed bots. But one cage held him. Eric was chained to the wall, slumped forward. His face was bruised, blood dried on his arms, but his chest still moved. He was alive. "Eric," she whispered, rushing to him. His head lifted slowly, eyes swollen. "Myra?" he said weakly. "Am I dreaming?" "No," she said, voice shaking. "I'm real, and I'm getting you out." She broke the locks using a heat tool hidden in her boot. Stolen from the maintenance room, the chains hissed and snapped. Eric collapsed into her arms, too weak to stand, but he smiled. "Didn't think you'd come." She held him close. "You came for me first." She helped him to his feet, supporting his weight over her shoulder. Her cyber leg groaned under the strain, but it didn't give out. They moved through the lower exit, one only, used for trash bots, but alarms started to blare above them. Security breach. Cell block accessed, intruder alert. "No," she gasped, pulling Eric faster. They reached the loading bay where service hovercrafts parked. One was unattended. Small, fast, old model, perfect. She dragged him in, fingers flying over the startup panel. Come on, come on. The engine hummed to life, lights blinking. Behind them, guards burst into the bay, weapons raised. There! One shouted. A shot fired. Just missed. Myra slammed her hand on the throttle. The hovercraft blasted forward, out the launch tunnel and into the night sky. They flew low over the jungle below the floating estate, wind tearing through the open side doors. Eric coughed hard, gripping her arm. You did it, he whispered. But Myra wasn't smiling yet. Not until they were safe. She looked back once, at the floating palace. That place had stolen her body, her freedom, her hope. But it couldn't steal her heart. And now, she had taken something back. She turned her eyes forward, to the endless stars. She didn't know where they'd go next, but one thing was certain. They were free. And she wasn't going to stop now. The hovercraft shook as it flew over the wild forest lands. Rain crashed against the cracked windows. Inside, Myra held the controls tightly, eyes focused, jaw clenched. Eric lay beside her on a padded bench, covered in a torn blanket. He was breathing better now, but he was still weak. Still healing, they had escaped, but escaping was only the beginning. After hours of flight, fuel ran low. Myra guided the hovercraft toward a small, forgotten town nestled at the edge of the jungle. Outpost Delta 3. No palace walls, no shining towers. Just rusted rooftops, dusty streets, and people who didn't ask questions. It was perfect. She rented a room in a hidden corner of the outpost, using stolen credits, a dark room with only one lamp and one old bed. But they had a roof, and for the first time in a long time, silence felt safe. For the next 2 weeks, Myra worked quietly. She took jobs fixing broken delivery drones and faulty vending bots. Her hands learned quickly. Eric had taught her well. Each night she returned to their room with supplies and medicines. Each night, Eric looked a little stronger. One evening, he sat up on his own. Myra, he said softly, you saved my life. She shook her head. You saved mine first. They talked long into the night. About Earth, about the estate, about how it all felt like some cruel dream. But every time, Myra looked at her leg, fully working now, no wires loose, no pain. She remembered it was real, the suffering, the cruelty. But also the kindness. One person had seen her when no one else did. I want to stay here, Eric said one day. Build something real. Myra nodded slowly. A place where people like us don't get thrown away. And so they did, with scrap parts and borrowed tools. They opened a small workshop at the edge of the outpost. They named it New Steps. The sign was simple, carved into metal by Myra's own hand. They repaired cybernetics for travelers, helped refugees, and gave shelter to broken bots and people alike. One morning, a little alien boy limped into the shop. His robotic foot was old, rusted, barely holding together. His eyes were wide with fear, as if he expected to be turned away. Myra knelt down, smiling gently. What's your name? She asked. The boy whispered, Joro. She patted his shoulder. Well, Joro, let's fix that foot of yours. As she worked, she saw herself in him. The pain, the silence, the quiet begging for someone to care. And this time, she was the one who noticed. She was the one who stayed. Eric watched from the doorway, arms crossed, smiling. You're good at that, he said later, making them feel seen. Myra smiled softly. I had a good teacher. Months passed, and the shop became known across nearby sectors, not for fancy signs or flashy tools, but because people said, go to New Steps, they won't ask for money, they'll ask if you're okay. Myra no longer hid from the mirror. She looked at her reflection and saw someone whole, not because of the leg, but because she had chosen to stand, to rise, to fight. One night while watching the stars outside the workshop, Eric handed her a wrapped package. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a pair of handmade boots reinforced at the heel. built for her cyber leg. "They're yours," he said, "so you can walk anywhere you want without pain." She slipped them on, took a step. It was light, smooth, perfect. She turned to him, eyes glassy. "You made these?" He nodded. "With love." She stepped forward and hugged him, and for a long time neither said a word. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night. Not far from their shop, a new girl approached. Her arm was missing, her clothes torn. Her eyes tired, she stood outside staring at the new step sign. Myra saw her, walked over and said, "Do you need help?" The girl nodded slowly. Myra opened the door wide. "Then come in," she said. "You're not broken, just waiting to be rebuilt." As the lights from the shop warmed the street, Myra realized something. Her journey had begun with a broken leg and a desperate deal. She had once sold herself just to walk again. Now she walked freely, not because someone gave her a gift, but because she had taken her life back, step by step.